So I'm working as a voice person, doing singing and voice acting in films. I'm touring, I'm recording, never made much money off our records until we had our own label, doing pretty decently on the road, and generating royalties from these songs that had done very well. We Belong was a massive hit and provided a significant amount of income early on, and then it dipped. By the time it hit the 10-year mark, it was nowhere near livable levels. It had come down to about $10,000 a year, and you can't live on that. That's when I started doing, I'd started doing other things before that. But I also saw it turn around and start growing subsequently after the 10-year mark every year. And it was weird. It's been played on US radio 5 million times. 5 million. It just hit that level a few months ago. It took 20 years to hit the first million. It took 8 years to double to 2 million. I called them about 5 years after that 2 million play certificate came and said, we might be closing in on 3. And they said, oh, sorry, Mr. Navarro, it's at 4. And that was 3 years ago. And now it's at 5. Seems to be racking up 1 million plays about every 3 years. So it's grown in popularity. It's grown in activity. No one could have predicted that. But you do the work. You put the effort out there, and you make these sort of commitments of time and energy and brain power to create something that will continue to work for you, if you're lucky. It's hard for players. Players basically get paid for their work, and that's kind of it. Although there is a royalty stream for players, what you really want to do is start building alliances. Again, the whole idea is to try to create something that generates beyond you. And the more people who know about you, the farther you can go. The more people who go, I know who I should get on bass, and it becomes you. This is how you work. I became known in the session world as someone they could call on when they wanted something quickly, done with some zing, especially if they didn't know exactly what they want. I don't know, we want something kind of maybe like this. And I would go for the fences and figure out what is it that I can bring to this. Rather than just, I mean, I would also give them what they want. That's important. But I would also use my third eye, so to speak, and try to figure out what might make the particular production have some sparkle to it, some spark, some energy, some verve, some zing, some which is what you get hired for. You get hired for your skill set, but you mostly get hired for your soul and your brain, on what you can bring to a project. And that comes from having the fire inside that says, I'm not going to give you 100%. I'm going to give you 120%. You might only use 96%, but I'm going to give you more so you can back it into what you need. Concurrently, in the very late 90s, I also started working with nonprofits. And what I mean by that is I volunteered for committees over at Screen Actors Guild and AFTRA. I got involved in the Recording Academy, serving on its board of governors in Los Angeles. I got heavily involved in the Folk Alliance, basically giving to a community that would continue to sustain me and my contemporaries. This is work that I found invaluable for a lot of reasons. Not only does it expand your contact base and your experience base and your knowledge base, but it's also just plain good karma. You know, I live in California, I talk that way. Presently, I'm the National Recording Artist Vice President of SAG-AFTRA. It's a position I've had for over 6 years. I'm starting my 4th 2-year term. I started that in October. I'm 6 months in, and we'll be going pretty much until 2021. And then we will see. I've spent a lot of time on the board. I don't know if I'll run for another term, but that's beside the point. Learning how the industry works, learning how the industry thinks, making it about understanding it, not just your little world, and I don't mean that in a pejorative manner. Our worlds are important, but they're little compared to the great big out there. And that is, to me, part of the difference in putting your work into a context and a perspective so that it can continue to work and shine and grow. When someone says to you, what about this? It's helpful if you understand it. And the various aspects of this business, whether it's publishing versus recordings, whether it's songwriting versus performance, whether it is mechanical licenses, synchronization licenses, record royalties, contracts, film use, master use. And then you start extending it out into what actors do when they perform as employees, but they're employees for multiples every year. But then also what it is to hit a mark, what it is to deliver a vocal, what it is to be able to play a part with some pizzazz. All of it is intertwined. I've been really fortunate to work for a long time. If I really had to narrow it down to 3 reasons why I continue to work, first of all, I'm talented. So are you. We don't mean that with any immodesty. We don't mean that with any arrogance. You have to be good enough to get up there and say, I'm going to be able to do this. And as you learn and grow, you have to be self-critical enough to grow, but not so self-critical that you stifle yourself. It's important to look at your own work and run it through the so what test, or as my dear friend Ellis Paul got from Christine Lavin, a wonderful songwriter. If you're a songwriter, any kind of musician, or any kind of performer, look at your work with the critical eye of someone who doesn't have your best interest at heart. My version of it, I run it through the so what test. But here are the three reasons why I think I've been able to continue to work, other than I've gotten pretty good at this. A willingness to try, to do things that you've never done before, to get up there and go, well, I've never done that, but how bad can it be? The willingness to embarrass yourself, but to go for it and to adjust on the fly. I have done many things I have never done before, and I was trained by a couple of employers when I was working day jobs, this artist management thing, but I also spent 5 years in advertising, initially as a copywriter, then as an art director, then as an account executive, and then I was kind of number 2 in a 10-person shop. And you learn how to do everything. And my boss would toss something on my desk and say, I need this done. And I'd look at it and go, well, I don't know how to do this. And he'd walk out, and from the back of his head, he'd say, you will when you're done. And the fear of failure, or the unwillingness to accept failure, would make me figure it out. Sometimes at the 11th hour, as I'm sweating bullets, tearing my hair out, and saying, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And then the idea comes. You got to be open to it, a willingness to try. Number 2, an openness to learn. To be told, that's not good enough, and take it. Instrumentalists in orchestras are used to this. When a conductor raps on the stand and says, you're out of tune. And you're not going to sit there and go, well, I don't know, boss, I think I'm in tune. But when you're in the studio with your friends and somebody says, you're not playing in time, we might get defensive. Take to heart what it is they're saying, whether they're right or wrong. I've been 1,000,000 times in sessions where someone says, I need more of this. And I think to myself, I just did that. And instead of, playing a trick on him and doing it the same and having him go, yeah, that's it, I go, what does he mean? What does he or she mean? What do they want from me? Think through it and give it a shot. A willingness to try and an openness to learn from everything. Everything in media is connected. Learn it all. And the third thing, a generosity of spirit. Because yes, you want to get paid for your work. Yes, you don't want to be taken advantage of in the studio. You don't want to have somebody use your work and not treat you with respect, kindness, and the professionalism that's necessary. But it's also true that if you don't get burned once in a while, you're not taking sufficient risk. Give it a shot. The generosity of spirit. Get to know everybody. Play with everybody. Sing with everybody. Write with everybody. If they don't measure up, you don't have to do it again. But how do you know if you haven't tried? And how do they know about you if you haven't given them something that they can access? That's pretty important. Willingness to try, openness to learn, and generosity of spirit. It's been a pretty fun career, trying out new things all the time. Trying out the things that some of them work, some of them don't. I'll play you some of my bad songs one of these days. But I will say, kind of looking back in hindsight, We Belong, my big hit, happened when I was feuding with my friend, didn't want to work with him, didn't even want to take the session, and hadn't spoken to him in 2 months. And he called up out of the blue and said, let's write a song for no reason. And I didn't want to do it. But my third voice said, you're not doing anything. Just go over, just suck it up and do it. If I had listened to my fears, my anger, my bitterness, my resentment, I wouldn't be talking to you today. I wouldn't know Ralph. I wouldn't know y'all. It's all about that willingness, that openness, that generosity of spirit, and that ability to glean and learn from your entire surroundings. What to do today? Learn everything. Learn about live webcasting. Learn about music distribution. Understand what's going on economically at the differences between Spotify and Sirius XM and Pandora and all of these elements. Understand what the technology is cold. Learn how the internet works. Learn how physical distribution works, because it does work to a certain extent. Understand why CDs are still being sold, especially globally, even though they're archaic, anachronistic, and nobody cares. We don't even have the players in our machines anymore. Learn all of it. I'm learning more and more and more. I'm in the middle right now. I'm doing today my 29th live webcast in 28 days. I started on March 15th doing live webcasts on Facebook Live, which I'm not monetizing, by the way. Yet, I'm still getting people sending me money, even though I say, don't bother sending me money. It's fine. And I've got a little bit of money in my PayPal and Venmo. Me as an old guy, I'm learning about the stuff myself. Just learned about OBS software, which will allow me to webcast better. I'm just using my phone like I am right now. I am in my 60s. And I'm still willing to learn, willing to try, willing to look at something I did and say, yeah, that ain't quite right. How can I make it better? How can I make it better? It's a joy to talk to you today. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person next year. And if you have questions, you can find, first of all, my website is dannavarro.com. That's DANNAVARRO.com. You can reach me at music@dannavarro.com if you want to get questions to me. You can find me on Facebook at Facebook/Dan Navarro Music. You can find me at Dan Navarro on Twitter, at Dan Navarro Music on Instagram. I don't do Pinterest and all of that there, and I'm still learning. It's a real pleasure to talk to you. Stay healthy, stay safe, keep creating. We need you.